Do you love the Tabernacle Choir? This year, the choir's music is everywhere you are. Listen to your favorite choir songs and music and the spoken word anytime you want on Alexa by simply enabling the skill.
Alexa, play music in the spoken word.
Now playing music in the spoken word.
You can also download the Tabernacle Choir app, subscribe to the choir on YouTube, listen on Spotify, and have access to all their wonderful music. Happy listening.
Join Scotty G today from noon to 3 at RGS Exteriors, 4235 Farm Road in West Jordan. Got a question up on our Facebook page about your Utah Jazz. Now, Will Hardy was reluctant to talk about the playoffs in his postseason press conference, but some of the players had no problem addressing them. Is it playoffs or bust? And the people weighing in largely think, yes, it's playoffs or bust. That's it. Bill actually lists his top 10 next year, and he's got the Jazz at number 5, behind San Antonio, Oklahoma City, Denver, and the Lakers, and in front of Minnesota, Houston, and Portland, as well as Golden State and the Clippers. So he's got his list. He's got his expectations, and Michael says if the Jazz don't make the playoffs next year, they underachieved. Brady says if they make the play-in games, that's 20 more wins, 42-40. I'll take that. You and I have already talked about this. Mathematically, yes, it'll be 20 more wins, but we know they gave away at least 10, possibly as many as 12 or 15 wins this year with the lineups they played and the decisions they make and the guys they sat. So 42-40 will feel like a 5 or 10 game improvement to me and to you. But I'm with all these people. It has to be next year for Utah, Gary says. I think it does. They've made a big trade. Presumably they're going to make more moves. It is playoffs. And, if the coach doesn't want to say it when he gets the question at 8 a.m. the morning after the season ends, well, he can punt it down the road. But by the time we get to next fall, I think everybody's going to be on the same page.
Yeah, when the season ended on the West Coast, no less.
Right.
So
yeah.
he's probably working on 2 or 3 hours of sleep. And he can anticipate the questions. He's a smart dude. And so don't pin me down now because there's so much to add to the roster,
right,
and a draft pick and everything and the things that will happen. When we get to September, when the players start coming back in September, that's the roster, and they'll have tryouts and all in camp, but we'll know largely who the guys are. And I just look at the talent of the team. I don't really look at right now, for argument and discussion's sake, worry about the other teams in the West. They'll be who they'll be, and we'll see, because you don't know what the Lakers are going to do with LeBron. We have no idea as far as that goes. So it's impossible.
Who's Denver going to put around Jokic? What's their roster?
Yeah, you're handicapping rosters today when that's not going to be the case. Now, for the Jazz, except for a draft pick and maybe some other guys, you get a Joe Johnson type guy to come in here and do what he did. That would be awesome. But I'm just looking at the guys that they have right now who are under contract. And that obviously doesn't include Kessler, but I want to include him. Hopefully he is included, or somebody of that caliber is included. I think it will be. And the talent level is just too much to not make the postseason. I really believe in the talent level, right? You've got accomplished guys. You got 2 guys at the top that are accomplished in this league. And I realize Markkanen has yet to play a playoff game, but the guy's got talent. There's a guy that I've been watching since college, and I knew of him, and because I actually had heard of him before he got to the U of A, because the Utah people were saying, yeah, we're going to probably get him, and Arizona did what it did to get him over there. So I've been aware of this youngster literally since he was a teenager, and there's not many guys who have his size, his skill, and all that stuff, right? And then Jaren Jackson, he's a proven commodity. It speaks for itself. Remember him back in college. I got a Wooden Award, so I watched those types of guys, a Wooden Award vote. And so, known of him, and he's the real deal. Mm-hmm. And then you got to throw Keontae right there. And obviously Ace Bailey is going to improve. He's probably going to improve for the next 3 to 4 years before there might be some type of leveling off. So when I look at that talent, it's not like it's overwhelming talent, but in my mind, it absolutely is a roster that has enough talent. If you just put this roster in, say the 26, 27 season started tomorrow, and these are the guys, and they're all healthy and they're ready to go, and they re-sign Kessler, I would be stunned unless they had major injury, knock on wood, throw salt over your shoulder, jump on one foot, whatever you got to do to make sure you got good luck there when it comes to injury. I would be blown away if they didn't make the postseason. There would have to be something that would go just strangely wrong. The talent is there. And the final analysis, that's why I put it on the players. The coach's job is to coach them up and get as much out of the talent that is there. Jerry Sloan, the first year after the statues, squeezed every last drop out of that team. That's coaching. That's what that's about. Putting your guys in the position to succeed. And Jerry did it as, in my mind, and I was here, we were all here. We had front literal second row seats where they used to sit the media to watch him take a bunch of dudes that were nondescript and put them in position to succeed over and over again. And we can go down the list. There's like 7, 8 guys that we can name that, wow, of course, anybody can name the statues, but we're not talking about them. We're talking about those other guys. And he did that. And so to win after the coach does all that, it's on the players. And then I look at these players, and there's a lot of talent there. And talent wins in any league. And that's why I'm thinking, yeah, playoffs for sure.
I think Will said what he said for multiple reasons, and one of them could be 8 a.m. the morning after the last game after a flight back from the West Coast. But I also think, listening to Will's press conferences and going to a fair number of them over 4 years, that he is cut out of similar cloth to Pablo Mastroeni, and that he is going to want he's going to be saying things Pablo says about getting better every day. What are we doing this week? What are you doing this next game? To go with a results-oriented answer that is still a year away, or even in the fall that is 6 months away. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets that question again, and I wouldn't be surprised if his answer was, hey, we all know where we want to be in the spring, but you don't get where you want to be in the spring sitting around and talking about where you want to be in the spring. It's about every day. It's about every practice. It's about every game. It's about every time you step on the court. That's the kind of stuff Pablo says. And, we can bring Pablo on Fridays and get him to try to talk about playoffs. He wants to be in the playoffs. He expects to be in the playoffs. He did drop a line in an interview once somewhere about saying something about being between 3rd and 6th in the West, that's about where the roster looked like, now. And then he acknowledged there's a summer transfer window, there's injuries, there's young guys developing. You can't write that stuff in stone right now. I wouldn't be surprised if Will goes down that. And I also think inside the organization, big picture, what we're talking about is just an intermediate step. Will's thinking, and Austin Ainge is thinking about acquiring and all that, like, how do you coach these guys up so once you make the playoffs, you win when you get there? Because they inherited a team that could routinely go to the first or second round of the playoffs. They had a 6-year run. They win every year. 3 times they won in advance. 3 times they didn't win in advance. If you tear that up, which they did, if you make us sit through a 4-year rebuild, which they did, in the long run, you can't get the same results. That's not okay. That's not a good investment of time and resources. They tore it up because they want to go further. And at different times, Danny Ainge talked about it. At different times, I really appreciate Jay-Z. Jay-Z got out, and he just said it. And I don't really remember him being that prompted. Maybe it was a little bit by the question. But he just brought up, we've been in a conference final since 07. We're coming up on 20 years. And so when they talk about championship windows and opening it and keeping it open, winning a title is a tricky thing. I think it's 7 different teams in 7 years now. But being in the top 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams in the league and being in a legitimate conversation to win it, that's what they're holding themselves accountable. And that should yield a Western Conference final. So there's also a danger in talking about the playoffs as if that's the ultimate goal. No, that's what we talk about in college football. It's the box you check on the way to where you want to go. Bowl eligible, good. Double-digit wins, good. But you got to get to the conference title game. You got to get to the playoff. You want to win when you get there. You got all these boxes to check. I don't think the Jazz have a lot of boxes to check. But the first one is get to the playoffs. And I'm with you. There's talent to do it. But there's young talent. It's got to get better every day because you want to win once you get there. They need to get back to a Western Conference final. 20 years is a long time. We talk about the Jazz like they're an exemplary franchise and they've had all this success. And if you go big picture and you go back 50 years, it's true. But if you look at the last 10 years, the last 15 years, or the last 25 or 30, there's a lot of other teams that have had runs and say, nah, we've done better than that. What are you talking about that for? The Jazz need to put together one of those runs.
Well, my mind and my response to what you're saying is that the talent is there for the playoffs.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't have to worry about what other teams are doing. Now, when I talk about conference finals, then I incorporate worrying about how good is team ABC because they could get there. In 88, the Jazz absolutely had
Could have been a
quality team capable of getting to the NBA finals, except there was one team that stood in the way. And stood in the way many times for many people and many teams, right? And it was hard to overcome, and they pushed the Lakers right to the brink. You couldn't be pushed anymore. So you incorporate that. Once you start saying, well, where do they stack up in terms of conference final? I think that's when you say, well, who's in the way? And right now, the Thunder and the Spurs have an extremely young nucleus. And it stands to reason the next 3 to 4 years, they're going to be in the way potentially.
Yeah.
But in terms of making the playoff, because there's so many teams that make it, it's not about who's in the way. We're just talking about making the playoffs. And absolutely, the coach's job is to push these guys and get them to be the best that they can be. And it sounds trite and cliche, but that's it. And that's the process. Whittingham talks about that a lot. Ultimately, the dudes out on the field and the court, they're the ones who've got to get it done. The Jazz did not win an NBA title because Jerry Sloan was in the way. No, I'll fight you if you say that. That's just not true whatsoever. They may have had some issues among the players, and then you had the opponent, and you factor that in. But the coach, it's a tricky thing. It's because you can't be ignorant and ignore the results because that's what keeps you employed. But the coach's jobs and the staff's job is to be so focused on the process of what you need to do to be able to get there. And then when it's there, you got to seize it like Jordan did and all that stuff and all the other guys. So I understand why Will Hardy is saying what he's saying because he's got all this other stuff to worry about. And he's got so many guys he's got to worry about. I mean, he is the CEO of the actual team. They've got a CEO of management, obviously, but he's the CEO of all these guys that are under him from the coaches and the staff and the players, blah, blah, blah. And so he shouldn't really, especially now, he shouldn't be focused on that because of the fact they have so many young guys, now is the time, literally, and I guess you could put in Jackson and Markkanen too in that category, and they're the veterans, to go ahead and make the level of improvement. We know, listening to Keontae George speak as much as he did, his improvement wasn't what started in October. No, it started right now. It started this time last year, and what he did mentally and physically to get himself in that position that leads us to believe this kid's a player in this league.
I think the thing about Will is, on the one hand, he's a young head coach, and he came here and it's 4 years of rebuilding, so we haven't seen anything. But his experience, when he gets hit like a question like that, he was in the Celtics organization. Before that, he was in the Spurs organization. They're all about deep playoff runs. And so although he wasn't in charge of making it happen, he sat right there and witnessed, and whatever his role was in whatever given year, he was a piece of the puzzle and he did his role. But he's seen what it takes. So he hears that question. He thinks, well, it takes a lot to do that. And then it's going to take more to win once we get there. Us sitting around talking about the playoffs all summer isn't going to get it done. That's not what's going to get there. But we're in a different role. As media or as fans, we've got that luxury. They have to do, like you said, Keontae George made important decisions, both physically and psychologically, mentally last year that paid off for him big time. But he had to make those decisions now. He couldn't be sitting around worried about, the end result. It's about the process that Whittingham talks of and that Mastrone and all these other coaches talk of. So, but I do think the goal next year needs to be playoffs. And you're right, the talent's there. It'd be surprising if it wasn't. And, to what degree, let's see which team decides to blow it up the way Memphis just did, trading Jaren Jackson. And who do the Nuggets put around Jokic? Because maybe they're only – I feel like the Nuggets are only at because of Jokic's brilliance, they're not that far behind the Thunder and the Spurs. I don't think they're going to take them both down and go to the conference finals, but they could make one move this summer, and then they could be the it team. Who's to say? All right,
Jake,
all right,
rolling?
DJ and PK, it's 97.5.
Hold on a second, DJ. Hold on a
okay.
second. I'm going to go Scotty G and friends. Jake, are you rolling on this?
Yes.
Oh, nice. Here we go.
We got
2026 27 Coach of the Year in the NBA, Will Hardy.
Oh, there it is. Mark it down.
You're rolling on that, Jake? You got that?
Nice.
That's your promo.
All right. When we come back,
I need a bit more than a 5-second
BYU
clip,
basketball. Yeah. The Cougars roster's coming into shape. You're starting to see how this is going to work. Who are the 7, 8, 9 guys who might be in a rotation? We can identify a couple more names. Let's get to that next. DJ and PK. It's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
This is JJ and Alex.
I got this. Travis Yost, our guest. He covers the NHL for TSN.
For the Mammoth, I think they're the fourth best team in the West. I think that they would be a likely favorite against Anaheim. They could be or should be a favorite in a series against Vegas. If the Mammoth close the season as we expect, by goal differential, this is the best team that has ever been on the ice for either the Utah or Phoenix, Arizona Coyotes franchise by goal differential this season right here, right now. This team absolutely should not be thinking we made it to the playoffs. What an accomplishment. At this point, considering how good the Mammoth have been, and I mean that, they really should be thinking, how do we go in and win a round in the playoffs? And I think if you've got Anaheim on the ice, even if you're the road team in that series, that's a matchup the Mammoth should want, and it's one they should win.
Catch JJ and Alex afternoons from 3 to 7 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Well, the Cougar roster is starting to come into shape. Now we can name 4 or 5 guys who will probably play a bunch of minutes next year, PK. And there is some excitement over that. There are some people feeling pretty positive over that. But there's still work to be done. Rob Wright returns. Jake Walling commits. How you feeling about BYU basketball? Scott says, let's go with optimistic. But only because that's the way it is being a BYU fan. My yearly optimism and then a spectacularly flat first-round exit after so much buildup.
Well, if you
Scott's
go
already
from
kicking
point A to
himself
point
out of the
B
line.
with nothing in between there, I get where you're coming from because there was a ton of hype, and obviously it turned out to be a disappointment. There was obviously factors involved, but nevertheless, it turned out to be a disappointment because you're going to get the number 1 pick in the draft. And, obviously, I think Sean Bradley go 2 or 3, but he hadn't played for 2 years, and it was an unusual situation with a salary cap coming in and blah, blah, blah. And he made the right decision financially to do that. And here you get all these years later, somebody of that caliber who was a one and done in a more traditional way than Sean was. And so I get that's disappointment. But going forward, I feel a lot better about the roster today than I did last week, that I did earlier in the week. And there is still work to be done. The news for the Utes isn't good. Dawes they're saying that he's going to go to Kansas. And that's a blow to Alex Jensen. And, I mean, they already knew he was in the portal. Hard to blame the kid running out of time here and would like to win and play in front of people. And you're not getting that either right now at Utah. It's sad. Hopefully they get it. BYU has that. And then you factor in this Bruce Branch kid. And, who knows? Who knows how Branch is going to be. I'm looking at draft stuff, and this happens every year. There's kids that nobody had. The Kingston kid from Houston being as good as he was for the Cougars this season and how he's just risen up the draft boards. And then you get some kids that in the beginning of the season, they're high on the draft board and slide. So Branch is thought of pretty high. I'm not so sure about these 4 and 5 stars. That's been weird for me. And I was going to ask you guys if you notice this, and Jake too can chime in, that, man, I see so many of these kids that, he was a former 4-star and he's played 2 years and he's averaging 3 points and 2 boards. Are they handing out stars a little more liberally these days? It just seems like there's so many of them. He's a 4-star, and it just doesn't have any game.
Yeah, 150% they are. Because it's more about you can buy the stars anymore than just that's what it is.
And I don't care about stars. When you transfer and you're in your third year, it's like, what'd you do in your first 2 years? If that matters, and you can argue it doesn't because it's like grade inflation in school, okay, then. But by the time you're 2 years in, it doesn't matter. What can you do? And they're bringing Jake back. He was at the U for a couple years, and he plays about 20 minutes. He grabs 4 or 5 rebounds. You need guys like that. You need guys who can come in and play 20 minutes and grab 4 or 5 rebounds. But if you think he's going to play 35 minutes and go 20 and 10, you probably set your expectations in the wrong place, And I don't remember what was said about him coming out of high school. But at this point, you ought to judge him on maybe not what he did as a freshman because now he's going into his 4th year, but what did he do as a sophomore and a junior? Well, that's kind of the neighborhood he's been in. That's about where I'd expect him. Maybe you can get a little more out of him. Certainly he gets a little more playing time. You expect his stats to go up. But they got 1 6'10" guy. We got a ton of people here people saying, basically saying so far so good. But David says like a donut, something's missing in the middle. Nate, I'm feeling cautiously optimistic. We still have to fill our biggest need, physical big men. I trust that Young will fill out the rest of the roster nicely. And Jesse says it should be good, but no way of knowing how Branch and Ruckert will do. Plus, we need to see what else BYU brings in. Antonio wants someone with a baby hook who can score at the rim, rebound, and block shots. Nothing fancy. Maybe they need 2 of those guys. So, more bigs. They got 1, need more. Well, they got 2.
I don't think there's any
we'll see how he plays. He's really skinny. He's young. Is he going to be more perimeter-oriented? In high school, he was more face-up and shoot a 3 or drive to the hoop. There wasn't a lot of back-to-basket there when I watched him.
Yeah. I mean, and the game has changed with the back-to-the-basket.
It has.
I mean, that's sort of – it's not obsolete, but it's just so not even close to the prominence that it used to be. So I'm not really concerned about that level. I want some interior guys that at least to be a threat because in order to have spacing – you have to have guys who are capable of doing something with the ball because if they're not, then spacing can get totally out of whack. And, we saw that towards the end of the season where AJ was getting double teamed 35 feet from the basket. I mean, sitting there, press row, center court against Texas, you could see it, man. Because you're there, you don't have to rely on a TV camera, and you could see the double team coming. You could see Sean Miller clearly. This is something that they didn't have a lot of time to practice, but they practiced it, and they probably had to do it in the SEC to an extent, and so they were aware of the concepts. And BYU at that time didn't have enough guys who can make the defense pay for that type of alignment, and that's why I think that you have Kevin Young in the bowels of the Moda Center saying the Holy Grail is shooting, and he's got to get shooters. So they're probably not going to get the offense to a guy that is going to have a back to the basket and you're going to throw the ball into him and he's going to go to work, as they say, because that doesn't really exist that much. Now, what you need, and we saw this with Michigan and their big kid, that, lobs, pick and rolls, stuff that's available on the penetration, you see that more than just throwing it in and he backs himself in. I'm not saying you don't need that. It's just that those players are hard to come by. They need some threats of interior scoring, and they haven't had it for 2 years. Got by to the Sweet 16 the first year, but this past season it was woefully weak. Now they got to go get it. They got to get some dudes who can do that. And if, Foose did that, he's obviously an undersized guy. Even for college, he was undersized, but he gave you everything he had. And so find those types of guys. If you can get, I agree. I think it was DJ, you said too, that they got to get that and find those guys.
Yeah. Yep.
And if they get that, then I think they're on their way and they can be competitive in the Big 12. And I mean, they were competitive to an extent this year, but I'm talking about finishing in the top 5, because clearly you finish the top 5 in this conference, you're going to get a decent seed in the NCAA tournament. So the encouraging part is that Kevin Young, you got to admire his ability to recruit. I mean, you can't deny it, right? And we'll see. He'll get better as far as his ability to coach guys, but you got to have the guys in the first place And right now, he's pretty good at selling what BYU has to offer. And I know the critics are going to howl money. Yeah, all right. You got me there.
Well, you better have it. You're not getting them if you don't have it.
Right. And they got it and use it, and they're in it to win it. And to me, it's not unbecoming of a church school. And it's actually, if you're going to have a basketball program, if you're going to have a women's cross country program, strive to be excellent. If you're going to have a softball program, and the list goes on, whatever sport you have, what's the point of having it if you're not going to try to win? I mean, that's sort of a lesson in life. The winners succeed, right? That's why they're winners. And so whatever it is, try to be the very best you can be. And this is what basketball costs these days. It's outrageous. I agree. It's insane. It's crazy. But that's the reality of it. So what's the point of sitting here and saying, oh, this can't be sustained? Sure, it can't, I don't think. But so what? Right now it is
now. Right.
Yeah.
And maybe if it can't be sustained, if there's donor fatigue everywhere and everybody's price drops, well, then you can still be competitive, and maybe guys are making, $1 million instead of $3 million. At $3 million,
well, that's the great
crazy.
thing about BYU, that donor fatigue. Right now, there's somebody in the 9th grade at Timpview who's going to be a multi-million-dollar entrepreneur. And he's going, or maybe she is going to be a big-time BYU fan. We're just getting started here, man. BYU is going to lead the charge in entrepreneurs jock sniffing and paying millions to be part of the team. Yeah. And they ought to have it. I think they ought to give those guys more stature. Entrepreneur row at the Marriott Center. Let's put those guys front and center, right?
Basically what
and
it is.
They
it's
each say
entrepreneur row plus Danny Ainge at the end. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm talking about the front row. That's the second row.
No.
Unless they want to be, if they want to be a skosh higher, it's up to them where they want to be.
If you look over on that one baseline, that's also entrepreneur row. They've got multiple areas.
Wrap it around.
Yeah.
Wrap it around the court.
Well, I think they ought to shine on them, the camera on them. And get this, they each have their own individual waiter or waitress. Not, that's your section. No, you've got your own personal one, and they attend to your every need during the game.
No. You're old school. You've got to advance with the times. There's not going to be waiters and waitresses. There's going to be drones delivering food and beverages courtside. They'll just zoom the drone in and zoom the drone out. You're not going to have people blocking views.
No. Entrepreneurs, they thrive on personal contact.
No, this is entrepreneurial spirit from DJ. The drone thing is absolutely it.
Okay, how about this? PK wants a personal contact. You've got a drone that's like carrying someone by the shoulders and flying the waiter and waitress in.
There we go.
Hey, you got to be on the cutting edge here.
I mean, now you're getting
what the
silly.
next
You're
round of
mocking me.
17-year-olds is going to expect in recruiting.
You're mocking me now, and I don't appreciate that. No.
Okay. The mocking only goes one way on this show. It's almost 25 years, and at 25 years, the worm turns, my man.
Haven't you learned the role here, DJ? Come on now. Let's go.
It's about time.
But at 25 years,
mocking only goes one way.
Shuffle and rotate.
Okay, but we're not there yet. We still got time. I'll agree with you. At
PK,
25,
you complete
we can
me.
mix it up.
I forgot about
and
that.
And it's like these boxer gals that come out and hold the cards. So they come out. And I'm not saying they're scantily clad. That's not the BYU way. No way. No. Okay. So let's just get that out of the way. But they got these cards that you are the server for this entrepreneur, and they really build it up, and they've got their names there, right? Whoever it might be, and make it more prominent so that they aspire to be a BYU entrepreneur. You too can outfit the money to get the Rob Wrights of the world, right? And then they can be personal endorsers.
Yeah.
So when it's senior night, the entrepreneur comes out with the mom and dad and the player.
Hey,
insert player name sponsored by this entrepreneur.
Yeah. Exactly. Yes.
One last serious thought before we go to break. You said Dawes to Kansas. Was there a part of you that wondered if he was going to do the Keba and go to BYU from Utah?
Oh, there was a decent
the size, the 3-point shooting.
Yeah.
Like, is this going to happen? Now, obviously, we're in our little bubble here, and we look at these schools, and obviously his size and his shooting is on display for the whole country. So,
yeah.
Kansas, so be it. But
well, essentially, he went to a Kansas-like situation.
Mm-hmm.
Sold out arenas, good football, good basketball program, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So good for him if that's what he wanted. Bad for Utah, but good for him. I would have preferred he stayed in state, and I want all the locals to win. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Coming up in the 9 o'clock hour, your Utah Mammoth are playoff bound, and they're going to face the Vegas Golden Knights. We'll get the playoff schedule after they play the last regular season game tonight. They should be putting that together. Some of the matchups are already set. We know Dallas is going to play Minnesota, and we know Utah is going to play Vegas. We will talk about all of this, the playoffs, the matchup, what is the key going to be in this series. We'll do that coming up with Cole Bagley at 9:30. Weber State basketball coach Caleb Canals joins us at 9 o'clock. DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson.
Christian's never seen Almost Famous because you and I are both ancient. One of the best movies ever. And Earl is the lead singer. Jason Lee.
Jason Lee. Who started his career as a professional skateboarder. Do you know that? He's like one of the greatest skateboarders of all time. And was like, I'm going to shift into being a big-time actor.
Scientologist.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, cool.
What do you mean? Isn't it a well-known fact that Jason Lee is a Scientologist?
I just thought it was a little irrelevant to the story, but...
Well known to one out of the three of us.
I don't know. I was thinking of all the things that I know about Jason Lee. Ben dropped this skateboarder thing in there, which seemed fairly fascinating. I just happen to know the guy's a Scientologist. That's all.
What are you implying? About Jason Lee today.
What are you saying? I wasn't saying anything negative about him. I just pointed it out. Scientologist.
Hear Jake Scott and Ben Anderson every day from 10 to noon on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone.
Make game day yours. Tickets, food and drinks, stats, and streaming. Everything you need is in the Utah Mammoth app. Download today and make game night easy. Download on both Android and iPhone. Just top.
DJ and PK, you ready for some playoffs, PK? We're not getting them in the NBA, but we're getting them in the NHL. Cole Bagley will be here at 9:30. It's Utah and Vegas. We had Mike Weir on earlier this morning. He talked a lot of golf. He talked a little hockey. Playoff hockey is the best, says the Canadian. And he noted, why not an I-15 series? They're not in the same division, but it ought to be a rivalry, so here we go.
Oh, we hate the Knights. They hate us.
They played 3 times this year. They didn't actually have any really close competitive games. Vegas won easily once, and Utah won easily twice. And 2 of those 3 games were back in November, so everything changes since November. So bring it on.
And I've known the media guys in Vegas for many, many years, obviously, right? Mm-hmm. And there was always a sense of jealousy in Vegas for what we had in Salt Lake or in Utah, because we had college football at an extremely high level. And then one of our teams got to go into the Pac-12, which upped the jealousy. And they were sitting there with Vegas playing in an old stadium before, 10,000 people getting their brains beat out. Things have changed now with the stadium, right? And things have changed dramatically. Changed. I mean, look at, they've got the Raiders, they've got the Knights, baseball. How in the heck did Vegas get baseball, man? That just seemed like, why?
Paid for a stadium.
Why did they get baseball?
How'd they get football? Why did they paid for a stadium. That's it.
I know, but football is a little bit different in terms of, just
it is
the nature of the sport. You don't have as many
games to sell. Right. It's an event.
And basketball, they want to, and I've got no problem with Seattle, but now all of a sudden Vegas is going to have everything. So now are we jealous of them? Well, what we can do is have the Mammoth go in there and punk the crap out of them in the first round. Yeah. And when the Knights were just getting started there, I was going to Vegas a lot more than I do now. I had some reasons I had to be down there. And man, everybody and their dog was a Golden Knights fan. I went to a concert there one time, and the concert got over, and the hockey game, you go through the casinos and they got TVs all over the place now, and most of them have the sports on, and they have, this was an outdoor concert too. And so and it was at a hotel, and the bar area, which was an open area. They had TVs and the place was packed. They're just Knights freaks. And so now we have this opportunity in only our second year, and they hit the ground running big time. Now they were a true expansion as opposed to a franchise relocation, obviously. Right. And they got it going quick. And we have this opportunity. And I was with Scotty yesterday. I was one of his friends, and we were talking about this, man, that what they've seen in the regular season, it's just going to be amplified. We're a playoff community, as most communities are. Yeah. And the opportunity to bring this in, it's going to be like it was. Remember the first game and they had Shabuzi out there and the plaza was all electric. Well, it's going to be like that first night when they had that game. It's going to be like that each time they have a playoff game if the weather's really good, which it has a tendency to be this time of year, obviously. And it's going to be unlike anything that those people Scotty plays this the promo there, I think, with Cooley, and he's talking about how I've never been in the playoffs. So they're going to feel it, and they're going to feel it around town too. Wherever they may live, and as they're driving to the Delta Center, and they're going to just feel the passion, and it's going to be so awesome. And then playoff hockey, can be super exciting because of the nature and the speed of the game and how one goal can change, and all of a sudden you blink and boom, you had another goal, and then a minute and a half later you got another one. You don't know when they're coming, right? That's the nature of this sport. It's like a home run. You don't know when it's coming, although from home runs, you get an opportunity. When Shohei comes up to bat, you're anticipating a home run. When he hits it, you're not shocked. You're impressed. Well, in hockey, it can be from anybody, anywhere, basically, can put that thing between those pipes, as they say, and that's what makes it fun.
We should get the NHL playoff schedule tonight after the last game finishes, but that you could be waiting on Edmonton and Vancouver, and the Kings are in Calgary. So until those games wrap up around 9:30 or 10, somewhere in there, and then I would expect we'll get the schedule. So we got to have it tomorrow morning, find out when and where they play. The key to the matchup, we will talk with Cole Bagley about that coming up at 9:30. Weber State's got a new basketball coach, and he joins us next. What is his tie to Damian Lillard, and how involved is Damian Lillard going to be in the Weber State basketball program going forward? That's next. Stay with us. DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.